at the end of the Cold War, we saw the US and others going in with more of the good governance model, where good governance was a component of the engagement. And that was in part because, a certain form of governance had won and another had lost in the Cold War. And so we saw, and we forget, these models are evolving, they're changing, they're always kind of experimental. And also, new institutions have been evolving over time, and those institutions and how they interact in the engaged countries. So, say USAID, a United States Agency for International Development. So creating a development institution within your bureaucracy designed to engage another country. That was established in the 60s under Kennedy, along with, say, the Peace Corps. And so we see that evolving, so that role of engagement. So say other actors may follow that, or many have been following that, say Turkey with TICA, which is still very young, I think, and still gaining institutional experience. We've had all sorts of new models arising too, say with public-private partnerships, PPPs, that became very popular, late 90s, early 2000s. And as that model became popular and the US was adopting it, along with themes of aid for trade, so maybe not just governance, trying to help development, but also looking at trade, liberalization, so it goes along with the entire movement towards the WTO, everything in the 90s again. But looking at public-private partnerships, also looking more towards the private sector and liberalization and mixing public and private sector. So with that, then you have models like the Millennium Challenge Corporation that has the Millennium Challenge account that we often, we don't talk about much anymore. Another model comes up, which is massive engagement, huge pushes towards very specific issue areas, especially HIV/AIDS. World Health Organization had done campaigns focused on eradication, really focusing on a single disease. But PEPFAR is a model, and I've mentioned a lot because it was the largest single bilateral response to a single health issue in history. So billions of dollars. First round was just 5 years, was under George W. Bush, trying to address HIV/AIDS. So looking at a health issue and intervening in it with that amount of funding that fell under multiple agencies. So also interagency interaction, addressing something, say, besides defense. So this is health. For many reasons. One, we realize global ramifications. So HIV obviously has impacted the entire world. So it's not just in sub-Saharan Africa. For economic reasons, because looking at how these diseases impact economies. So also a model of looking at social issues because of the economic impact and political impact. And I think someone mentioned it earlier, that evangelical perspective that George W. Bush brought. Because there was also a lot in faith-based organizations within the U.S. at that time and how they were treated in U.S. policy. So evangelicalism came into it. So PEPFAR was itself a model, and it kind of had a mission creep. It really kept expanding because then the model became looking at drivers. And once you find one driver, you find another and another and another. And so the U.S. government really started getting into safer health, into health system strengthening. So looking at entire systems now. So they go from a single disease, which is HIV/AIDS, but to a very broad-based approach, which is systems. The Obama administration actually kept PEPFAR, but introduced its own kind of spin to it. Then it introduced Power Africa, which combines a lot of these earlier models. Power Africa works with the needs of a country and trying to find innovative ways to address gaps that are found. Whether it's on-grid or off-grid energy, whether it's public-private partnerships, small, large, what have you. It doesn't have to be, say, the companies or private sector from the country engaged or from the US. It can be a mixture. So becoming more flexible or nimble in how needs are addressed. At the same time, going back to basics. So Power Africa is looking at energy. Economies, governments, societies need basic energy. And this is going along with the theme back to infrastructure. African Development Bank is doing it as well, the Africa 50. So Power Africa, you have a lot of funding going into rail and infrastructure development throughout the region because we recognize the gap. Again, we have the security. I mean, we have AFRICOM and a security push. Obama established, the drone hub in the region, keeping our embassies tight. Whereas, like say, Turkey is expanding, opening an embassy at most regional states and aiming to have all. So it's breadth over depth. AGOA, trade agreement. So it's asymmetrical. So this goes back to the trade for aid generation. So it was under Bill Clinton in 2000. It was about the same time as the EBA of Europe, the Everything But Arms. So trying to promote pro-growth, good governance trade sectors. Taking down tariff barriers that would, in an asymmetrical manner, so meaning in favor of the export, which the targeted sub-Saharan African states. Now we can look back, we have 17 years to really analyze, to assess, was this successful or not. Other models, the US hasn't really been pushing as much though, which are the regional economic communities, the RECs. But it goes along with the US push for the World Trade Organization and actually WTO plus agreements. So the regional economic communities are attempting to support some of these special trade relationships, say with the EU and sub-Saharan Africa, in a way that still conforms to the terms of the WTO. So looking at how the model for liberalization is also affecting regional engagement. So that's been a major issue.